the rest of us now will have to follow suit, get big, but still keeping your same strength. So he's just gonna, it's a different time now.
So the new era of the mass monster has begun, with Big Ramy being crowned Olympia champion in 2020. Clearly the biggest guy on stage, carries overall the most muscle mass. I still don't think he's quite as dense and as heavily muscled in certain areas as some of the other competitors. But he's got a good frame, quite a tight waist, fairly good flow, overall larger than all of the other competitors, and he's as conditioned, if not more conditioned, than a lot of these guys. So it's a hard combo to beat. I think his side chest is the best pose by far, but still needs to make improvements for me personally. Forearms, calves, side torso detail, lats, conditioning in general, just getting that kind of separation that you see from the likes of Phil Heath. I think if Phil Heath had come in his best shape that we've seen in the past, he may well have won. But now the benchmark has been set, the bar has been raised once again, and these guys in the second and third tier, the guys that were unfortunately not able to make this year's Olympia, now have to play catch up. It's no good them coming in to next year's Olympia, the same condition as Big Ramy, but 10, 12 kilo lighter. It's not going to be enough to, to give them that nudge over him. And that's why it's such a hard combination to beat. And you've seen this, in history before. All the other competitors have to chase that top dog, the biggest guy, the likes of Dorian Yates. Not only was the biggest guy at that time, but he was one of the most conditioned athletes. It's very, very hard to overcome. And you see the massive progress between 92 and 93. When the other athletes perhaps think they're getting close, it's that whole nother step up, and they've got to push even harder to get, anywhere near close to him. And this happens all throughout bodybuilding history over the last few decades. Athletes chasing that top guy, the likes of Flex and Kevin Lavoni, Nasser, Paul Dillette, all trying to play catch up to the champion at that time, Dorian Yates. And you can see how the size game influences their physique as well over time. Very rapidly deteriorates, in my opinion, because they play that size game. I mean, look at Dorian Yates. He obviously suffering with injuries, bicep and tricep tear, but clearly the waist got to him in the end. The size game caught up with him. Then we move on to the next champion, Ronnie Coleman, an even bigger and better version than Dorian Yates. And over the years, he improved on that. And, Kevin Lavoni and Flex Wheeler still trying to play catch up. Bigger and bigger and bigger, but they still can't outsize and outcondition the likes of Ronnie Coleman. It's interesting how history kind of repeats itself in this way. I mean, you can see here Flex Wheeler, it's debatable whether his arms are filled with synth or not, but clearly a lot bigger than he was in the past, and I think that was to a detriment of his physique. And, you can see here towards the end of his career in the early 2000s, I think 2002, I believe, same as Kevin Lavoni. I think it's not just age, it's a size game. It comes back and beats him. Paul Dillette here, Nasser. The heavy drug usage just rapidly deteriorates their physique far faster than age would, in my opinion. I think they all succumb to that. The athletes are just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and anyone coming up that wants to beat Ronnie Coleman is not going to beat him by being 20 kilos lighter. So they're all chasing for that top guy, and they're all going to, do whatever it takes to get there. And the size and the weights will go up as a consequence. And unfortunately for a lot of guys, it causes their physiques to collapse a lot quicker than others, to deteriorate a lot quicker. I mean, Ronnie Coleman, if you look at his physique from say 99 to 2004, I mean, it's just a staggering change in waist thickness. King Kamali, I mean, terrible results of heavy drug usage. Marcus Rawl, I mean, Trey Brewer, anyone remember him? He was like the superstar in the early 2000s. Meant to be the next big thing. Completely blew his physique out, trying to play the size game, trying to get as big as possible, pounding the drugs, do whatever it takes to catch up with those big boys, and it kicks him in the arse. And we move on to the next champion. Jay Cutler takes the title, holds it for a few years, and then on comes Phil Heath. Phil Heath is playing the catch-up game. Fantastic physique to begin with, really nice. But it's not big enough to beat the likes of Jay Cutler, so he has to put on that size. Same as Kai Greene. I mean, Kai Greene was coming up the ranks more or less the same time as Phil Heath. Great physique. Just simply doesn't carry enough muscle mass to beat the likes of Jay Cutler and Ronnie Coleman, the champions that have gone before. So finally, Phil Heath is able to overcome Jay Cutler. But it comes at a price. The size that he has accumulated, they're able to hold it for a very, very short period of time, in my opinion. They're at that pinnacle for just a few years, maybe 2 or 3 years, and then things just start going downhill. The side effects of the heavy drug usage come into play, and the waist grows in size, and it ruins the flow of the physique, the flow of the physique that got them to where they were in the first place. So Phil Heath's chasing down Jay Cutler, now Kai Greene's chasing down Phil Heath. They're all trying to out-muscle each other. You've got the likes of Dennis Wolf in the lineup as well, another huge guy. I think 2014 was the last battle of the mass monsters. And then, unfortunately, the negative effects of that mass begin to show their effects on Phil Heath. And we enter a new era, a more aesthetic era, slightly downsized, with Shaun taking the victory in 2018. The likes of Dexter Jackson doing a little bit better, consistently conditioned athletes. Roelly Winklaar changing his physique, making it a lot more streamlined and being rewarded for that, rightly so. A different era entirely, a lot more emphasis placed on V-taper and stomach control, which is very important. Athletes being really punished for showing any midsection growth. And then in 2019, obviously, with Brandon Curry taking the victory, another smaller physique, still obviously heavily muscled, but downsized compared to the likes of Jay Cutler, Ronnie, even Phil. He's nowhere near as big as Phil, nowhere near as heavily muscled. But now someone comes along that's as conditioned as these guys, has got a decent shape and packs more muscle, and that's Big Ramy, and it's going to be hard to overtake that now. All the other athletes have to gain a little bit more muscle to even compete with that. So it's going to be interesting to see really what happens next year at the Olympia. I hope Phil Heath makes a comeback. I hope they're all there, including Roelly and Flex Lewis and Nick Walker. It'd be interesting to watch. The question remains, though, whether in the pursuit of more muscle mass and in the attempt to catch up with Big Ramy, some of these competitors won't fall victim to the ill effects of drug consumption, and the physiques will deteriorate at a much more rapid rate. And you've seen this historically in bodybuilders unable to match their kind of top level of muscularity. The deterioration in like 3 or 4 years is tremendous, even in a year sometimes. It seems like nowadays bodybuilders are able to kind of navigate their way through it a little bit better, almost see the car crash before it happens and rectify it. It would be interesting to see how they manage to do that, with the challenge of putting on so much muscle mass to get to the level that Big Ramy's on. It seems that despite bodybuilders being heavier, they appear to lose muscle mass, lose separation between the muscles and the conditioning, the widening of the midsection. It just goes to pot. And I hope that doesn't happen with some of these competitors. I don't think it will as much because there's so much emphasis placed on the midsection these days, whereas before I don't think it was quite as important. So it'll be interesting to say the least. If you've enjoyed the video, guys, then please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to see more bodybuilding videos, both pro bodybuilding and natural. And check out my Instagram. The link is in the description box below. Stay strong.